It is June 8th, and all the stores are out of razors, cannot shave.
Uh-oh. It's been a long day. That's all it is. We usually tape this early in the day, and today's a little later, and this is what happens to me, Joe. It just starts.
Did you have one of those meetings where you grew that just from the beginning to the end of the meeting?
It seemed like that was the meeting I was in today. So, but it's all good. Joe, thank you again for covering us. It is Monday. I want to talk about a few things because I did have a few meetings today. The mayor's task force met about just the increase in numbers. So, and then we want to talk about phase 2 a little bit first. But I'm going to grab the screen and I'm going to share my numbers for today because I really do think it is part of the story we got to talk about. So you can see again, Joe, we have jumped. So you and I have been tracking these two boxes and they have been green in the past. Red means they're going the wrong direction. Now you see now the new numbers we've just posted. We were down at 1.3 cases per week, percent positive cases per week. And now we've just seen that go up. And look at this. Now we're at our all-time high of number of new cases as well. So what the mayor's committee and our chamber has been talking about is just what does this really mean for all of us? Are these numbers getting to the point where we're worried that we might have to pull back? And especially since we just started phase 2. So when you look at that daily average of new cases, this is where we're at now. You can see, remember I used to talk about April 8th and 9th here saying this was our peak. This was when everybody said it was the worst. And then it started to work down and we opened back up right here in the middle of your screen here. And since we've opened up, now you see the trajectory of we've surpassed the peak. So it's something that is concerning for all of us. But there is, a little bit of information here that I want to make sure I continue to share with you all is you can see we're still getting, and why our weekly number went up, Joe, you can just see with a 2.9, a 3.1, a 4.5, you can't keep it under this one. You can't keep it under that one. So you're seeing a tremendous amount of cases. These are the number of positives and a higher percent positive. Now, we used to say we wanted it under 6%. So it's still under 6%, but it's starting to be a daily ritual now of getting higher numbers. And you still see there are still folks that are reporting that they feel like they're sick. I put up a new chart for us today, Joe, just because I was concerned. These are the charts that I showed you on Friday: hospital beds available, ICU beds, ventilators. And so on Friday, you and I said, gosh, let's see what happens if the numbers go up. We might be having a pullback. What are we going to do as a business community? So I put that on there, and then you can see today. So even though we had higher numbers than normal, we had larger percent positives and larger amount of people testing positive. What I'm still seeing is my hospital beds have actually increased, my ICU beds has actually increased, and my ventilators have actually increased. So that is at least telling me, and what we settled on is it is telling us that people are still getting sick very quickly through these protests, through the convenings we have, through phase 1 and now phase 2. People are still getting sick. It's just they aren't dying. And what we have seen now is the age group of 25 to 34, Joe, is now the number one carrier of the COVID, are getting more positive tests out of it. So it's the young folks right now who are out speaking their minds, but they're also getting sick. So I know this isn't what they want to hear, but if you're going out and protesting, and I hope you do, because we need your voice, but please put it behind a mask, because it's getting folks sick. And we're about to start saying we might have to pull back and close things like we were closing them. So if you want to keep a job going, if you want your business or your favorite place in St. Pete to keep open, we're asking everybody to wear a mask. It's one thing you can do for this entire community. But we're on the edge of it right now. And it's something why I was late is we had real concern as a community right now that do people understand that they still have to social distance, that they still have to wear a mask. And we're trying everything we can because we don't believe people understand that we're really close to doing what happened in Singapore and heading back in.
Yeah, and it feels like turning a ship too. It's just the timing is so terrible because today is the first day getting right into phase 2, and you go through all this work to open back up, and you see this trajectory, and definitely calls for some some being ready to pivot, a mindset that we may have to pivot and understand that there's a big part of the pain in doing that certainly is financial for a big part of the population, but it's emotionally, a negative experience and draining for pretty much the entire population. And so, you see the numbers, just prepare yourself in case we have to go back so that it doesn't sting any more than it has to.
And have the conversation with your employees, with your family, with somebody else, your neighbors about just the conversation about the mask and getting sick and how it's transmitted. Just start educating each other, because just like what we talked about all last week, and we're going to talk about this week too about these race issues. It's about familiarity again, Joe. Your ground principle of this whole thing is that we will do it once we understand who it's affecting and why it's affecting it. If you knew you could get me sick, you wouldn't want to get me sick, and because there's familiarity there, you wouldn't want to get your neighbor sick. So I think there's some work to be done, and let's keep doing it. But it's close. We're going to watch it. I'll bring it back tomorrow, and I know the mayor's going to be live tomorrow at 1:00 on Facebook, explaining his thoughts behind it, and he's really, really concerned too about what all of us can do. All right. And now, so what I also wanted to talk about is we had a great conversation, you and I, the last couple of days. Thank God for Eric and his equity conference, Equity Amid Crisis Conference. It allowed everybody to come together as a community and at least hear each other's concerns and ideas and frustrations and thoughts. And so what I thought is we can continue that conversation about what we didn't see, or what we, like what's not being reported or how it's being reported. Because what's really important to me, Joe, is what you guys have done at the Catalyst is what I think is the magic of our community that we need everybody to understand is we will see the real story. We'll hear the real voices and pay attention to them. And you've got a reporter with you that's almost ready to leave, but she's been following some of this, and I'd love to just get her opinion on what does she see in the community when she reports it.
Megan.
And there she is.
Hello.
Megan, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too, Chris.
So Joe and I were just talking about the numbers for COVID-19, and unfortunately, Megan, it doesn't look good, and it's rising at a rate that we are concerned about. It's a percentage rate of new tests that we are concerned about. And now for the first time, we've seen a shift in the demographics of who it's affecting. And I don't think it'll be a surprise to you because that's how you spent the last few weeks, is just on the streets, but it's affecting those, the young folks, 25 to 34 have seen the spike in getting it positive as well. And so we thought in our meeting with the mayor, we thought it was a little bit related to just people out, both socially in the bars and restaurants, but also in the protests and the concern for our community. You've got to cover a lot of that. So when you hear me just talk about that, what do you think about when you hear that? Just does that make sense to you that you would see that? Have you started to see just from the protests and everything that there's just a lot of people out there, and it doesn't surprise you that the numbers are going to go up?
Well, it doesn't surprise me that the numbers are going up. I'm not sure if they're attributable to the protests quite yet. Maybe they are. They definitely could be, because there are a lot of people out. I do think that as we have seen, like as I've been covering and I've seen the protests march through downtown is also very busy with young people out at restaurants, out at breweries, just kind of people getting out and socializing a lot more.
True.
So as far as I can tell in the protests, there have been a lot of people wearing masks, but not so much keeping that 6-foot distance. So I'm sure that there will be some community spread from that.
That's a fair statement. And I don't know that it's from the protesters either, but I just feel like it is from just all the activity we're seeing. And I appreciate that. And before I go much further, I forgot just to make sure, I know because everybody knows you and you work for Catalyst, but introduce yourself to everybody. Tell a little bit about just your personal story.
Sure. I'm Megan Holmes. I'm the managing editor of the St. Pete Catalyst. I grew up in small town Minnesota. And I moved to St. Petersburg about 5 years ago when I graduated from undergrad at St. Olaf College in Minnesota. It's actually almost exactly 5 years since I moved here. I think it was June 12th of 2015. So, yeah, it's been great. I moved down here to be a community organizer. And I worked at McKinsey, and then I met up with Joe when we were working at Big C, and we split off and started the Catalyst together. So
Thank
it's been
you.
a journey.
Well, I'm certainly glad you made it to St. Pete. And starting out as a community organizer, you actually are doing that at the Catalyst. Or would you disagree or agree with the statement that you're a community organizer at the Catalyst right now?
I think I certainly have a bit of a platform to share ideas and spread ideas. I wouldn't say I try hard to kind of position conversations within the community in a thoughtful way. I wouldn't call myself a classic news reporter. I don't report just straight, who, what, where, when, why. I try to really contextualize conversations and also start and lift up conversations that I think are useful for the St. Pete community. So in some ways, I guess you could say there's some community organizing involved in that.
Well, I think there is.
That's been a real amazing part of the secret sauce of why the Catalyst is working, because neither Megan nor I had that sort of traditional journalism background, and so we kind of came in with a degree of openness and in a positive sense, ignorance. I say great innovation comes from ignorance, and because of that, Megan has been able to really encapsulate what I think of as the next way journalism is going to be, which is to still be objective and thoughtful, but to respect that you do have influence, whether you want to or not, and then to bring an energy behind it that's an intention. It's when in Megan's writing, you feel there's an earnestness to get to a good resolution, that there is an interest in the outcome, but yet a real respect to get all sides as well to help us get there. So that's really, it was just amazing that coming from, and not bringing her on to do that she had that in her, and really it's been a sort of a guiding principle for how we've grown.
All right. So Megan, what is so help me boil down. I don't follow Facebook. I don't have a social media account that I track too much. I rely on the Catalyst, but I also rely on the people that I talk to every day for my information. But what do you think the St. Pete story is over the last 10 days about, what do you want to make sure people really understand about what you've seen, about the hurt, about the anger, about the way it's been handled, about the protests, the police? Just what have you witnessed that you can honestly say is the story from your perspective?
I think that's a difficult question because the story is different for a lot of different people. So you see a lot of factions, particularly in the Black community, older leaders, younger leaders, faith leaders, radical leaders. There's kind of a factioning, I would say, of ideas of what protests should look like, ideas of what the demands should be, that sort of thing. I think we've seen a lot of the more I guess radical, I don't know if that's a good term to use, but the stronger demands move towards Tampa, whereas I think a lot of the more peaceful conversations have stayed in St. Petersburg. So from what I've witnessed, the protests have really been a grassroots thing. They kind of just sprung out of people's pain and outcries, looking for a way to make St. Pete as a community feel more like a community than a separated presence of North and South, and a business community. I think sometimes it feels like it's exclusionary for some people that live, south of Central. So I've seen protests that gather every day at St. Pete City Hall. They gather at 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. And they pretty much walk around the city. So yesterday I took part in that at 2:00. It started at City Hall. I followed the crowd around through Central Avenue, down to 16th Street, down to 18th Avenue South, around up 18th Avenue South to MLK, and then back all the way up through downtown. down Fifth Avenue South and around up Beach Drive, and then back around up Fifth Avenue North, back to City Hall. So they truly have, it's been like an exodus around the city. And it's been really interesting because you see kind of both sides of the conversation, right? You see these young organizers who are reaching out to folks in the Black community, asking them, like, join us, walk with us. We're here. These people who are walking, and there were probably 300 or so, maybe more, yesterday, saying these people want to support your businesses. They want to support your livelihood. They want to support your life. And then, alternatively being in Beach Drive. And there was a time when the whole protest took a knee for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, which is a long time, and sat in the street, no talking, just the organizers of the protest talking to people who were sitting on the sidewalks at cafes and in restaurants, and having really like meaningful conversations that I kind of didn't expect. So it's been really, really interesting. And I'm not sure what the single thread is of it all, but it's definitely been interesting to witness.
So thank you for that firsthand account. It sounds to me it's really healthy though, right? I mean, like it, when you talk about it, you get charged up. I mean, like you see it as a positive thing for your community. And that's why I wanted to really talk to you a little bit too, is I think part of it is we want in St. Pete for everybody to really know what's going on, and you can help us with that part. And then know that it, and I'm putting words in your mouth, that it was healthy and important and well conducted. But we see imagery of battles and fights and people getting hurt and people being scared. Were there points when you felt that way, that it was going to be that way in St. Pete, or were there points that was unhealthy for you to be around?
I think early on it felt more like that than it has felt this week. Monday night, I was out at this, so not obviously today is Monday, right? Yeah. So last Monday, I was out, and, people were walking in the streets, and seemed that everything felt a little less organized and a little bit more angry. But I think as things have gone on, it's gotten better. But I definitely think that people have really just tried to make this as peaceful as possible. For example, on Monday night, a Jeep walking up MLK, the entire protest was walking in the street, and a Jeep turned off of First Avenue South and into the crowd of people on purpose and ran over someone's bike, probably like 3 feet from me as a reporter on close to the side. Like I was very, very, very close. I actually took a video of it, but my phone was ruined in the rain. It was a very scary moment. And the organizers kind of gathered everyone together, and they said, guys, it's just a bike. It's just a bike. Everybody's okay. Nothing else happened. And we're lucky nothing else happened. Like that was not a cool thing to have happen, but we're all okay. And we're staying peaceful. And that night also, police officers were flanking the back of the whole protest, keeping everyone safe from traffic behind them. That sense has been like a job that's been organized by the protests themselves. They have cars that flank the back to keep people safe. They have a traffic patrol of bicycles that block off the streets as people go by. And it's interesting, those are young business owners. They're young people who are just interested in keeping everybody safe. And it's interesting to see. It's pretty cool. I would say that we're very much practicing the St. Pete way in the protests as well. And I think that's important.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I want people to, if they want to go protest, I wanted them to go protest, and I wanted them to hear that it's actually organized. It can be safe. There's good people around. You'll meet people like you that care, and you can feel like you're doing what you want to do as an American, is speak your mind. So I'm glad you're covering it. What part, has there been a story that you couldn't write, is there anything that you haven't written yet I guess let me rephrase it, because what I'm really interested in is, and I'm kind of sad too, to be real honest, is my understanding is you're going to be leaving us to continue your career, and you're going to be going back to school and continue your path. And you're not going to be able to write this whole story for us. So help me understand what you hope to write. Like, where do you think this story is going? And, like, can you frame the story that is going to be written but won't be by you about the future of this? Like, what is the story you won't write that you would like to write about this whole thing?
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. Yeah, I'm going to Stetson in the fall to get my JD, which I'm looking forward to. I know it's going to be hard work, but I'm very much looking forward to it. That's something I've been knowing is in my future for a long time. As far as the untold story, or the story that I can tell, I feel like I have quite a breadth of ability to tell most stories with the Catalyst, but um, I do think that there is a bit of I don't know, a disconnect, or and, and Joe and I talked about this a little bit before. He's asking me, what's the difference between the people who are doing things like the equity conference, or things like the, business leaders getting together, or ministers getting together and speaking with police and with the mayor. And I think there is a disconnect in how that's being translated to the community, how young people are being involved in that conversation. I think people aren't feeling like their voices are being heard in the way that they want their voice to be heard. And that some of the actions from the city are symbolic and not helpful, I guess. That's the impression that I'm getting, that people are seeing it as kind of as gestures, but not as real change. So yeah, that would be the untold story, I guess, is how does all that come together to create a set of demands, or a set of policy ideas, or a set of actions that everyone kind of agrees upon, and creates like a solidified, this is what we want and this is where we're going with this.
Yeah, and that's one of the the connecting points that I really hope to achieve with the Catalyst is, when people are protesting, it's when they're sending that energy out, it's sort of to the system, right? We're sending our energy we're protesting to this way that the system is. And I also want to make sure that they fully realize that they are the system. They can be the system in how they can influence the system, and to look at the ways that, in addition to protesting, that they can influence the system. As we've said many times, we are the sum of our inputs, and the Catalyst is, we have community voices for a reason, and we welcome people to articulate their visions, articulate the change they want to see, because I think without putting that out there, you need that plus the energy, right? It's direction plus energy that gets you to a goal. And again, I said this before, I welcome folks who have a vision, who can point to specific things that we can work on to get better, to write it, and we can put it, and then we mix that. So we have the chamber and the city and the Foundation for Healthy St. Petersburg and all the good work they're doing, and then we have the people that are on the street, and have that perspective as well. And the more we can get those together and form a common narrative around that, the better we're going to be. And so, if you are connected to people and they've talked to you about why they're protesting, and they're talking to you about what change they want to see, and you're like, that makes a lot of sense, get them to write it down, or get them to reach out to us, and we can come in and do an interview like this. They don't even have to write it down. That's what we want to be.
Yeah, I think that's what media is supposed to do anyway, is I guess actually just supposed to be that place where people can get all the same information and then feel like they're part of it. And you guys have really leaned into feeling like you're part of it. And actually, maybe that will help with the disconnect that Megan, you've landed on as kind of the story that isn't getting told, or you're seeing that needs to be told. I see that because I'm one of those leaders who's trying to come up with things, and then I'm having wonderful articulate conversations, and then the folks expect, and it's a demographic to me, I think too. Younger folks look at me like, that's not the answer. stop it. And so there is that disconnect, and I'm in those rooms, and I want the people in the community to know we're not trying to be disconnected. So, and that's what, go ahead.
I think there's an opportunity though for leaders like you, leaders like city council members, leaders like any business leaders at all, to go out and join people and just hear what their concerns are. Just be a part of it. Literally every day, 2 p.m. and 7 p.m., and walk out of your office, walk over to City Hall, and just kind of like talk to people. I think that that's a way of really leveling the power dynamic and helping people feel like they're being heard.
That's beautiful.
Mixing inputs is that's some of our inputs. That's great advice.
Well done. Well, Megan, I am glad that I've still got at least a month with you here, because I know it's not till July 1st, but we appreciate you. Keep writing the stories. Maybe we can get you an electric scooter or something to follow it, though, because I'm a little worried about just the pure mileage. I hope you get mileage for your tennis shoes.
My knees, I'm telling you, they are hurting today.
Okay, I bet. But hang in there. I appreciate what you're doing, and best of luck to you for anything you do in the future. And thank you for what you do for us.
Thank you, Chris.